Hello everyone, my name is Leonila Palomar, taking up Bachelor of Technology and Livelihood Education, major in Home Economics.
Good day everyone. My name is Breche Aguilar. I am a third year student taking up Bachelor of Secondary Education, major in Home Economics.
In this video, we're going to discuss about science, matter, energy, and system. Science is a broad field of study focused on discovering how nature works and using that knowledge to describe what is likely to happen in the nature. It is based on the assumption that events in the physical world follow orderly cause and effect patterns that can be understood through careful observation, measurements, and experimentation. What do scientists do? Scientists collect data and develop hypotheses, theories, and laws about how nature works. Scientists use observations, experiments, and models to answer questions about how nature works. Borman and Likens carried out this scientific process to find out how clearing forested land can affect its ability to store water and retain soil nutrients. Borman and Likens came up forest is cleared and exposed to rain and melting snow, it retains less water and loses large quantities of soil nutrients. The experimenters wrote scientific articles describing their research, and these were evaluated by other scientists in their fields. The research conducted by Borman and Likens and other scientists led to the scientific theory that trees and other plants hold soil in place and help it to retain water and nutrients needed to support the plants. Scientists are curious and skeptical and demand evidence. Good scientists are extremely curious about how nature works and are keen observers of what is happening in nature. Scientists tend to be highly skeptical of new data and hypotheses. An important part of the scientific process is peer review. It involves scientists openly publishing details of the methods they used, the results of their experiments, and the reasoning behind their hypotheses for other scientists working in the same field to evaluate. Critical thinking and creativity are important in science. Scientists use logical reasoning and critical thinking skills to learn about the natural world. Thinking critically involves 4 important steps. First, be skeptical about everything you read or hear. Second, look at the evidence and evaluate it and any related information, along with inputs and opinions from a variety of reliable sources. Third, be open to many viewpoints and evaluate each one before coming to a conclusion. Identify and evaluate your personal assumptions, biases, and beliefs, being careful to distinguish between facts and opinions. Logic and critical thinking are very important tools in science, but imagination, creativity, and intuition are just as vital. According to Albert Einstein, there is no completely logical way to a new scientific idea. Scientific theories and laws are the most important and certain results of science. We should never take a scientific theory lightly. It has been tested widely, is supported by extensive evidence, and is accepted as being a useful explanation of some phenomenon by most scientists in a particular field or related field of study. Another important and reliable outcome of science is a scientific law or law of nature, a well-tested and widely accepted description of what we find happening repeatedly and in the same way in nature. An example is the law of gravity. The result of science can be reliable, unreliable, or tentative. Reliable science consists of data, hypotheses, models, theories, and laws that are widely accepted by all or most of the scientists who are considered experts in the field under study. Scientific hypotheses and results that are presented as reliable without having undergone the rigors of peer review or that have been discarded as a result of peer review or additional research are considered to be unreliable science. Preliminary scientific results that have not been widely tested and accepted by peer review or tested and reproduced by other scientists are not yet considered to be reliable and can be thought of a tentative science. Science has some limitations. First, scientists cannot prove or disprove anything absolutely because there is always some degree of uncertainty in scientific measurements, observations, and models. Instead, scientists try to establish that a particular scientific theory has a very high probability or certainty, typically 90% to 95% of being useful for understanding some aspect of the natural world. A second limitation of science is that scientists are human and thus are not totally free of bias about their own results and hypotheses. A third limitation is that many systems in the natural world involve a huge number of variables with complex interactions. This makes it too difficult, costly, and time-consuming to test one variable at a time in controlled experiment. A fourth limitation of science involves the use of statistical tools. Despite these limitations, science is the most useful way that we have of learning about nature works and projecting how it might behave in the future. What is matter and what happens when it undergoes change? Matter consists of elements and compounds which in turn are made up of atoms, ions, or molecules. Matter is anything that has mass and takes up space. It can exist in three physical states: solid, liquid, and gas, and two chemical forms: elements and compounds. Matter consists of elements and compounds. An element such as gold or mercury is a type of matter that has a unique set of properties and it cannot be broken down into simpler substances by chemical means. The periodic table of the elements contains 118 elements, not all of which occur naturally. Most matter consists of compounds, combinations of two or more different elements held together in fixed proportions. For example, water is a compound made of the elements hydrogen and oxygen that have chemically combined with one another. Atoms, molecules, and ions are the building blocks of matter. The basic building blocks of matter is an atom. The idea that all elements are made up of atoms is called the atomic theory. Subatomic particles including neutrons with no electrical charge, protons each with a positive electrical charge, and electrons each with a negative electrical charge. Each atom has an extremely small center called the nucleus, which contains one or more protons and in most cases one or more neutrons. Outside of the nucleus, we can find one or more electrons in rapid motion. Each element has a unique atomic number equal to the number of protons in the nucleus of each atom. Because electrons have so little mass compared to protons and neutrons, most of an atom's mass is concentrated in its nucleus. The mass of an atom is described by its mass number, the total number of neutrons and protons in its nucleus. For example, a carbon atom with 6 protons and 6 neutrons in its nucleus has a mass number of 12. The forms of an element having the same atomic number but different mass number are called isotopes of that element. Scientists identify isotopes by attaching their mass numbers to the name or symbol of the element. For example, the three most common isotopes of carbon are carbon-12 with 6 protons and 6 neutrons, carbon-13 with 6 protons and 7 neutrons, and carbon-14 with 6 protons and 8 neutrons. The second building block of matter is a molecule, a combination of two or more atoms of the same or different elements held together by forces known as chemical bonds. Molecules are the basic building blocks of many compounds. For example, water is a compound with a molecule that consists of 2 atoms of hydrogen and 1 atom of oxygen held together by chemical bonds. A third building block of some type of matter is an ion, an atom or a group of atoms with one or more net positive or negative electrical charges as a result of losing or gaining one or more electrons. An important example of an ion is the nitrate ion, a nutrient essential for plant growth. Ions are also important for measuring a substance's acidity in a water solution, which is based on the comparative amounts of hydrogen ions and hydroxide ions contained in a particular volume of the solution. Scientists use pH as a measure of acidity. Hydrogen ions and hydroxide ions, it is called a neutral solution and has a pH of 7. An acidic solution has more hydrogen ions than hydroxide ions and has a pH less than 7. A basic solution has more hydroxide ions than hydrogen ions and has a pH greater than 7. Examples of compounds under formulas are water and sodium chloride. Organic compounds are the chemicals of life. Plastics, table sugar, vitamins, aspirin, penicillin, and most of chemicals in your body are called organic compounds because they contain at least 2 carbon atoms combined with atoms of one or more other elements. Exception is methane, the simplest organic compound with only 1 carbon atom. Several types of larger and more complex organic compounds essential to life are called polymers. 3 major types of organic polymers are complex carbohydrates, and the second one proteins, and the last one is lipids. Matter comes to life through cells, genes, and chromosomes. All organisms are composed of one or more cells, the fundamental structural and functional units of life. The idea that all living things are composed of cells is called the cell theory. Within some DNA molecules are certain sequences of nucleotides called genes. Each of these distinct pieces of DNA contains instructions or codes called genetic information. In turn, thousands of genes make up a single chromosome, a double helix DNA molecule wrapped around one or more proteins. Genetic information coded in your chromosal DNA is what makes you different from an oak leaf, an alligator, or a mosquito, and from your parents. Matter undergoes physical, chemical, and nuclear changes. When a sample of matter undergoes a physical change, there is no change in its chemical composition. A piece of aluminum foil cut into small pieces is still aluminum foil. When solid water, which is ice, melts and when liquid water boils, the resulting liquid water and water vapor are still made up of H2O molecules. When a chemical change or chemical reaction takes place, there is change in the chemical composition of the substances involved. In addition to physical and chemical changes, matter can undergo 3 types of nuclear change or change in the nuclei of its atoms. First, radioactive decay occurs when the nuclei of unstable isotopes spontaneously emit fast-moving chunks of matter or alpha particles or beta particles, high energy radiation or gamma rays, or both at a fixed rate. The second one is nuclear fission, occurs when the nuclei of certain isotopes with large mass numbers are split apart into lighter nuclei and release energy when struck by a neutron. Each fission releases neutrons, which can cause more nuclei to fission. This cascade of fissions can result in a chain reaction that releases an enormous amount of energy in a short time. And the last one is nuclear fusion, occurs when two nuclei of lighter atoms, such as hydrogen, are forced together at extremely high temperatures until they fuse to form a heavier nucleus and release a tremendous amount of energy. We cannot create or destroy atoms. The law of conservation of matter. Whenever matter undergoes a physical or chemical change, no atoms are created or destroyed.
Good day, everyone. So now let's proceed to the next discussion. What is energy and what happens when it undergoes change? So first, let's discuss what is energy. Energy is a capacity to do work. Energy makes change. Energy moves car along the road and boats over the water. It bakes a cake in the oven and keeps ice frozen in the freezer. It plays our favorite song on the radio and lights our homes. Energy makes our bodies grow and allows our minds to think. To do this, you have to use a certain amount of muscular force or work. So, like for example, to move the book from one place to another, that is energy. So let's talk about the two types of energy, the kinetic energy, or also called moving energy, and the potential energy, also called stored energy. Kinetic energy from the word moving is that after such work has been done, energy has been transferred to the object and the object will be moving with a new constant speed. So the energy transferred is known as kinetic energy. Another form of kinetic energy is heat or thermal energy. This is produced when a rise of temperature causes atoms and molecules to move faster and collide with each other. So, like for example, in boiling water, when the temperature increases, the molecules or the water inside the kettle will move faster and become warmer and boiled. So, that process is called heat or thermal energy. Another form of kinetic energy is called electromagnetic energy, and this energy travels in form of waves as a result of changing electrical and magnetic field. This is travel through air. Like for example, in the second picture, those short wavelength have more energy than those lower wavelength. Example of this is radio wave, microwave, ultraviolet light, X-ray, etc. All things that has radiation that travels through air has this kind of energy. Next is potential energy or stored energy. Potential energy is stored and potentially available for use like water stored behind a dam that is stored to use when it needed. Also, potential energy can be changed to kinetic energy. Example of this is when you hold this ball, that is potential energy. However, when you drop that ball, it changes to kinetic energy. So there are types of energy that are more useful than other. Energy quality is a measure of capacity of a type of energy to do useful work. So there are high quality energy and low quality energy. High quality energy is concentrated energy that has a high capacity to do useful work. Like for example, very high temperature heat, concentrated sunlight, and high speed wind. Low quality energy is energy that is so dispersed that it has a little capacity to do useful work, like low temperature. In changing energy, there are two types of scientific laws. First is also called conservation of energy. This is when energy converted from one form to another in physical or chemical change. There is no energy is created nor destroyed. Second, energy is converted from one form to another in physical or chemical change. We end up with lower quality or less usable energy than we started with. When we convert something, expect that the quality of that will end up with lower or less quality. So next, what are the system and how do they respond to change? First, what is system? A system is a set of components that function and interact with some regular way. A cell, a human body, a forest, a river, an economy, and the earth are all systems. Systems have inputs, flows, and outputs of matter and energy, and the feedback can affect their behavior. There are two types of system, the non-living system and living system. Non-living systems such as a car or a TV do not change their size or how they perform in response to change in environmental condition like water, soil, air, light, and minerals. Also pens, books, bottles, etc. Non-living things are not alive. They do not possess life. They are not have a cell, do not grow or move. Living system on the other hand can change their size and components and how they behave in response to changing environmental conditions. Living systems exist and are alive and are made of cells. They grow and move like plants, animals, bacteria, and us humans. Living systems have the following key components: inputs of matter and energy from the environment, flows or throughputs of matter and energy within the system, and outputs of the matter and energy to the environment. Input of energy serves as the starting point, and the throughputs or flow are the procedure or the process, while outputs are the finished point or the outcome of the energy. Systems are affected in one way or another by feedback. System responds to change through feedback loops. So there are two types of feedback. Any process that increases is positive feedback or decreases the negative feedback. So systems have inputs, flows, and outputs of energy and feedback that can affect their behavior, and this is called feedback loops. Feedback loops occurs when the output or the outcome of the matter or energy is feedback into the system as an input or the starting point that leads to change in that system. So that's end my report. I hope you learned something. Thank you for listening and God bless.